Okay, so we are setting up our final project repositories and web pages from scratch. Let's get into it. So the first thing that we should do is create the repository. And you can do this from the GitHub website, but we're going to do this from GitHub Desktop. So GitHub Desktop is, yeah, you should be signed into your account. I'm going to create a new repository from here. So file, new repository. Okay. And then for this repository name, call this, I don't know, cool final project. Okay. So you don't have to do dashes. You don't have to call it cool final project. You can do dashes or underscores, no spaces, no periods. And keep in mind what you name this thing is going to be part of the URL that gets created. So it'll be like dougrossman.github.io/cool-final-project. So if you actually have a fun name that you want to put, this is the place to do it. You don't have to put cool, like you can put, like if this website were about pandas, you could put pandas, and that's going to be much more dynamic. So final project. So give it a description, local path. I'm just doing mine on my desktop for this demo, but you can save this wherever you want. Make sure you initialize with a README, leave these as none, and then hit create repository. Okay. And then I'm going to hit publish repository, which will actually put it up into the cloud in my GitHub account. So this is a chance to rename it if you want. You can rename it after you publish it. That's fine. I'm going to uncheck this so the code is not private. And I'm going to hit publish. Okay. Cool. So once all that goes away, then we're good. No local changes. There's nothing really going on yet. I'm going to click Show in Explorer. If you're on a Mac, it would just be Show in Finder. And here's my README. So let's start adding some things to this real quick. So from GitHub Desktop, you can click Open in Visual Studio Code. I found that works for some people and not for others, depending on the way you installed VS Code. So I'm not going to go this route. Like if you do this and it gives you an error, that's okay. We'll just do it this way. So I'm going to open up VS Code. And then just close off whatever I had open from before. And I'm going to go File, Open Folder. If you're on a Mac, it's just going to say File Open. And then from here, so I've got on my desktop, I've got sample site, I've got my website, I've got final project website, but we're doing cool final project right now. So I'm going to open that up. And shouldn't see a whole lot, should just see a README once you do that. Okay. Let's add a couple of the important folders that we need to get this website up and running. So once you're in here, you're going to click the new folder button here, which you can also just click in the gray area, say new folder if you want. You could also, nope, that's not the right command. Never mind. We're going to click the button and we're going to call this docs. Make sure it's all lowercase, make sure there are no spaces, like, you know, really make sure there isn't some like hidden space at the front when you save it. It might not even let you save it that way, but maybe on the end as well, like just docs. And then in here, we're going to create a file called index.html. This index.html is what's going to be your homepage. So let's give it the basic fill-in stuff. I'm going to type HT, and we want to go to HTML5. So I can click on that. I can do my arrow keys to get there if I want. Hit tab or enter once I get there. And we'll just say cool website final for the title. And then here, I'll just do an H1 cool website. All right. So now just to make sure that we actually have a web page that we can look at, we should go live using the live server thing. So if you have go live at the bottom, go ahead and click on that. If you don't have that, it's probably because there wasn't a whole lot going on in your folder when you first opened VS Code. I had VS Code open from earlier, so it kind of like live server was already on or something. So if it doesn't say that, just like close off VS Code. If you're on a Mac, you can just hit the little red dot to close the specific project you're working on. And I'm just going to reopen VS Code. And if it doesn't automatically open in the project you were just working on, you can go to File, Open Recent, and just select it from there. But now you should have Go Live in the bottom corner. Okay, cool. Cool website, nice. Okay, so now that we've done that, now let's go back into GitHub Desktop and just commit and push these changes. So you can see here that we've created a file inside of the docs folder. Let's just say add homepage, commit to master, and push origin. Cool. Okay, and then let's head on over to our favorite web browser and go to the actual GitHub website. Okay, once you're there, go to your repositories from your little profile icon on the right, and this will show you your most recent repositories. So you should see the one you just created right here at the top. I'm going to click on that. And since I just pushed my changes, I have this docs thing in my index folder here, or index file here. Cool. Okay. I'm going to, from the home page of my repo where I can see all this stuff, I'm going to go to settings. And then I'm going to scroll down to GitHub pages. And on this drop down for source where it says none, I'm going to set this to be master branch docs. Once you do that, it'll automatically save itself, and you now have a public website of all of the code you put in this repository. So at this URL, which if I go now, it might not be there because it takes maybe 20 to 30 seconds. Yeah, site not found. So we'll just wait. Let's try it again. Site not found. I've been doing a lot of pushes to GitHub in the last hour. So sometimes if you do lots of pushing, it takes a little extra time for your website to update itself. But like when you push your changes to GitHub, they will always appear immediately in your repository. So when you do commit push, they always end up here immediately. But the actual changes on the public website sometimes take up to a minute. So let's try that again. I'm going to go back into settings so I can find that link. And it's still not working. It's probably actually uploaded, but because my browser like cached this sort of like premature version, I can't load it here. So, and this, you should do this every time you're not seeing your changes reflected after a minute. You should open up, if you're in Firefox, a private window, or if you're in Chrome, an incognito window, and try it there. And this will give you like the fresh, no cached version, so you can actually check. So if you don't see your changes right away, everything might be fine. It might just be your browser's giving you trouble. So moving on. See, look, I'm loading it now on my regular browser and it's not showing up because it's still trying to load the cached version. I believe if I open up my inspector, it sort of, no, it doesn't. I think it works on Chrome like that. Okay, let's just close this tab and try again. Sometimes in 10 minutes it'll work, but whenever I'm testing, I often use an incognito, a private window to do this. If you're just joining us, we just set up a fresh repository and now we linked it to GitHub pages. So now we're going to start creating some files and folders. If you wanted to see that part, this is all recorded, so you can go back and watch this later. Okay, so let's start working on this thing now. So we are in VS Code, in our homepage, which we can see here, and hopefully if I change some things, it'll reflect. Okay. Good. Okay. I think I'm going to do this in kind of reverse order in the way I did this in the morning version of this workshop. In the morning version, I did the boring stuff where I created pages and linked them first, but I think this time I'm going to style things first and make the homepage how I want it to look, and then add some pages and link them later. So let's start by creating a cool homepage. And I think I'm going to do, in the first workshop, I did more of like a little image gallery thing on the front page. So if you want to see like a responsive image gallery, I go over that. I think I'm going to do something a little different in this one, but still touch on a lot of the same positioning and CSS properties that I talked about in the first one. Okay, does anybody have any questions before I dive in? All right, let's do it. So if you don't have this stuff set up but you want to follow along, if you want, I'd suggest just watching and going back later, but you could kind of do some of this stuff in CodePen if you wanted. So yeah. All right, so let's create some content first. Let's make this web page. We're gonna make this like a splash page. Maybe a splash page is like a big full screen kind of web page that you hit when you end up on a website and you have to like click a button to enter the site, and then you actually see all of the content. So maybe we'll make a splash page. So let's create some CSS. So inside of my docs folder, where I'm going to create everything from now on, I can either click the new folder button, or I can right click docs and say new folder, and I'll call this CSS. And then inside of here, create a file, and I'll call this style.css. Okay. And I will split the window so that I have this on both sides. Okay, great. And let's just add some basic styling just so that we can see that our changes are registering. Font, family, Arial. Okay. So of course, we're not going to see these changes over here until we link style.css to our homepage. So I'm going to go into the head section of my HTML here. I'm going to say link. And because VS Code is really nice, it gives me the fill-in stuff that I need. So if I just hit tab, as long as link is highlighted here, it gives me link rel equals style sheet, href equals, and then for the href, I just have to put the link to the CSS. So CSS slash style.css, which, because I made the folder CSS, files in there, okay. And we are inside of index right now. There are my changes. All right. So let's keep going. So if we're gonna do a splash page, often like there's like big text in the center of the page, maybe a site subtitle, and then like a big background image. So let's do that. So the first thing I want to do is kind of make a, let's make like a section. Let's call this like div. Let's make a div. Say div class equals, I'll call this splash content. Sure. Okay. And let's bring this inside of there. So there we go. Okay. So it doesn't look any different yet because this div isn't doing anything yet. This is just going to give us something that we can group things inside of in style. So H1, cool website. H2, the coolest website ever. So that's like a subtitle. And then maybe we'll put a little p tag here. And we can say something like, click here to enter site. I don't know, maybe we'll make that a button later, but this is fine for now. Okay, let's do some basic kind of styling as we go. So let's take our splash content here. So dot splash content. And let's just position all of this stuff so that it's always at the center of the screen. So I'm going to say position absolute. So whenever, again, we do position absolute, we can position things wherever we want to on the screen. So I now have access to things like top, and I can say top 100 pixels. Wait a second. Top 1,000 pixels? Ah, that's right. It's sort of relative to this body section here. Let me give this a background color so we can kind of see what we're working with. Background color, light gray. Okay. Splash content, dot splash content. Huh. Oh, it's because I'm saying splash content. That's why nothing's working. Great. Okay. I'd much rather would have typos than not understanding the code I write. So yeah, now I can say top 100 pixels. I could say left 100 pixels. So no matter what, it'll stay there, but we always want it to be at the center of the screen. So we're going to say we want it to be 50% of the screen from the top and 50% of the screen from the left. Okay, which doesn't quite get us there. You can kind of see it's like, yeah, if I go small, you can really see that it's not actually centered. So there's one more thing we have to do. Transform translate minus 50% minus 50%. And now this actually takes it the rest of the way. Like this takes it so that the top left corner of this thing is in the 50%, 50% location. But when we say translate minus 50, it sort of like goes by half of its own width and height. Hold on. Are people still hearing me? I just got a little thing on my screen that says my internet's unstable. Is this all coming through?
Yeah, it was frozen. I was like, what just happened? But I can hear you now.
Oh,
I thought
okay.
my
I don't.
internet was going down at first.
Yeah, it
How?
felt me for a second too.
Sorry. Who else's went down for a bit?
Mine, it froze for like a good 30 seconds.
So I was frozen for like 30. Okay.
You were frozen.
Gotcha. Okay. Let me
Oh,
make sure my
Yeah,
internet's
he
okay.
just froze again.
I know.
Damn. That's okay. Because I can
Wow.
hear you all. Can you?
Oh
Can you?
my god.
Can you still hear me? Okay.
Oh, there you
What about
Okay.
now?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. I think Zoom is
Acting out.
bugging out a little bit because I think my internet is fine. I think. I don't know. We'll see. Spam me in the chat if I start like freezing up again.
Okay.
So let me just do a quick recap of the things I just did here. So yeah, like this little block of code right here, these 4 lines, position absolute, top 50, left 50, transform, translate, whatever, like this is just one of those things that is good to memorize or something. Or if you don't memorize it, just like know where to find it so you can copy and paste it. This is how you get anything to always be in the center of your screen, no matter what. So, we do stuff with Flex if we have like a lot of things, but if you kind of just want one thing to sit in the center, this is a good way to do that. So, all right, so we've got that there. It's not looking super great yet. Let's give this a little bit more, excuse me. Let's give this a little bit more control. So we have an H1 and an H2 here, and then this P tag, which I think I'm going to make this a button. Okay. Cool. So button like doesn't do anything yet, but it does have these built-in properties, which are nice. So let's see. So I'm going to make some classes for these. I'm going to say h1 class equals, I'll call this like main title. And then I'll say h2 class equals subtitle. And then button class equals, I don't know, enter site button, I guess. It's a little long and clunky, but I'm just trying to be descriptive right now. So now we can go in here and instead of styling every H1 all at once, we can just target this one. So I'll say main title. Okay. And maybe we want the font size to be like 100 pixels. There we go. Now we're talking. And let's center this. Let's say text align center. Okay. Cool. Let's see. Nice. So like right now, this like splash content thing keeps resizing itself based on sort of where it is or how big the page is. But we maybe want to give this like a size that should always be. So let's say width 700 pixels. Okay, so now it'll always be 700 pixels no matter what. Okay. Now let's style the subtitle that we said. So I'm actually going to call this main subtitle. I'm calling these main title and main subtitle because it might be that once we click on this to go to the page, we have like a site title or a regular subtitle or something. It helps to be specific. Or actually, instead of main title and main subtitle, I'll call this splash title because we're dealing with the splash page right now. So now that whenever I see splash, I know what it's dealing with. So I'm just going to call this splash button now. Okay. So splash title, splash subtitle, text align center. Let's do the same for the button. So splash button. So if I say text align, this is a button. Will it censor it? It will not. So we have to say margin 0 auto, 0 auto. And we also have to make this a block level element. Okay. And we also have to set its width. I'll explain this more in a sec. Width max 110. Okay. And is this not right? Oh, because it's spash again. Okay. So let's actually see if I could have gotten away with this with just margin 0 auto. No, I do need display block and width max content. Maybe I don't need these. Okay, nice. I don't need that. Good. So the reason I need to make so a button is an inline element by default. It is by default inline. And you can't position these elements with margins. So we have to just convert it to a block level element, and then we can apply these margins to it to center it. So, okay. So we've got this nice centered thing here. Cool. All right, so let's get a background image going. So unsplash, that's unsplash.it. Did they change their URL? No, it's unsplash.com. So this is a good website if you want to find really pretty generic stock photos that are free. So let's get a forest. Wow, cool. I think I've seen this particular image on like 20 different website mockup template things that I've looked at. So if you want to be a web dev person, you got to use this image, but I want this one. So we're going to download this image. Okay. And I'm going to save the file to my downloads. That's fine. Okay. Thanks, Gustav. Let's go into my downloads folder. Cool. So I've got this image here, and I want to bring this into my web page. So in my docs folder, I'm going to create a folder called images. And I'm going to drag this in. And again, it's still in my downloads folder. It's now been copied over here. So now there are 2 copies of this image on my computer. And let's rename this. So right click, rename. I'll call this Forest BG. Okay. Here's a little preview. I'll just close the tab. Okay. And we're back. So let's give this page this background. And we could do this in a couple of different ways. Let's do this by, it kind of depends if you want the image to always be the same size or if you want the image size to change dynamically with the page. So let's start with, let's see, I think we'll start with the dynamic one. So inside of the body in CSS, I'm going to say background image URL. And then in there, I'm going to put this link to images/forest bg.jpg. Okay. It's not going to find it because my CSS is in this folder here and images is outside of that folder. So in order to access this images folder here, I have to say .. and then it finds it. Okay, great. So it's loading the full size image. So no matter how I like the image isn't resizing, it's just staying at its size. So there are a couple things we can do. We can say background image. I need a semicolon. Background. So we got a couple of different things here. Background position, background repeat, size, clip, origin. Like all these things can help you place this where you want to put it. So for background size, there are kind of these, like, you could give it hard number values, but I think I'm just going to put cover. Okay, so that like makes it, this is the dynamic version, but you see it repeats itself on the bottom. So I'm going to say background repeat, no repeat. Okay. So now it's just there, but now it's not taking up the whole page unless we're at a certain size. So for the background size, I might say like, what about 100%? What about 200%? I don't know if that actually works for the, okay, that does work, cool. So this will scale with the window size. I could give it a default, like always be 2000 pixels. And this is the width that I'm describing here. So yeah, the width is going to be 2000 pixels and the height scales accordingly, but it's now like going off to the side there. So instead of doing it this way, I think what I want to do is say background. Well, sorry, before I do like the static thing where it never changes size, let's just finish this off with, we say cover. Let's see. Maybe contain. Oh, we don't need, that's not even an option. Auto is the default thing. I think if we just say 100%, this will do that. And then, okay. So if you have an image that is tall enough and you set it to be 100, it can like extend to the bottom, but we often are dealing with very different web page sizes. So let's make this just like the single static size that never changes no matter what. So let's set this to be, let me see. Trying to think, because there's a totally separate way of doing this that I think I'm also going to do now to make this the fixed version. So you can do a background image like this, and you can play around with these background attributes. But I could also go into the HTML and say like image, and I'll say image class equals background source. And now it's just going to be images, forest BG, forest image. Okay, so now it's, again, just being put in at full size by default. But I can style this by, say, going dot background. I'm actually going to make this class background image. Background image. And we'll say position fixed, left 0, top 0. So that makes sure to put it in the corner there. And then we can give it sort of the same sizes that were, that we were kind of giving up there with.
Sorry, are you gonna upload
Yeah,
this to Canvas later, like this video?
yes, yeah, I will. Okay. So yeah, if you got to go, that's fine. This will be up later. So, okay. So again, setting a width 100% is also going to like mirror exactly what was happening over there. The end of the day, though, like setting, so this background image, like it's always going to sort of not cover the page and not always move around. So there are a couple of other things we kind of have to do. So I think what I want to do with this is I'm going to set, let's say 2000 pixels for the width. Because this is like a pretty tall web page too. So we're going to keep it there for now. Yeah, I think I'll actually come back to this once we add more content. Okay. So we've got this click to enter site thing. Let's make this look a little bit prettier. Okay. So this splash content, let's maybe make the background color RGBA. Let's make it black, but semi-transparent. Okay. Maybe a little bit more opaque. And let's change the color of some of these things. So the splash title, let's make that white. Again, this is not the most beautiful web design you've ever seen, but you can play around with these things. Color, green. Okay, and then like, let's see, splash button, padding 20 pixels to give it just some breathing room. Background color. Let's go with nothing. But we'll give it a border, which it already kind of has because it's a button, but we can customize that. Okay. Sure. So there's our button, which actually, if we don't give it a border, then it will maintain its like clicking properties. So we can click it and it still looks like an actual button that we're clicking on. Okay, so that's sort of some basic stuff for just like making a page that looks like this. And if you do choose to do something like this and you're not quite, it's not formatting exactly how you want, we can take a look. To make this a little bit more responsive, I might, make the splash title or the splash content, instead of being width 700 pixels, we'll set this to be like 60 view width. So it'll always be 60% of the page. So it gets bigger as I go. I can also set my fonts to do kind of the same thing if I want, where instead of saying 100 pixels, I could say 50%. That's really small. Let's try 50 VW. That's pretty big. So percentage is always the parent container. So like when I said 50%, it's thinking about just this black background, but now VW it's thinking in terms of the entire page. So, okay. Nice. All right, moving on. So let's actually make some pages so that we can think about how to actually structure our web pages. So, okay. Oops. All right. So I'm going to create a page in here, and I'll call this home. Make a folder called home, and then inside of home, index.html. Okay. And then in here, I'll do my fill in home. I'm going to close the CSS just so we're staying a little bit more focused. Okay. And then inside of here, let's just, for now, put a little placeholder home. All right. So if we want to get there, we have to tell this button. So there are a couple ways that you could do this. You could like contain the entire button inside of an A tag, ahref equals home, because that's where we're trying to go. Close that. Do that. So now if we click here, it takes us to our home page. But I think you can also just tell the button where you want to go. Let me see. Let's see. Button HTML. Yeah, so the button tag, form action. Okay. Buttons are more for forms. So if you want to just link to another page, just doing it this way by embedding it inside of an A tag is, I'd say, a better way to go about it. All right. So we click there. Cool. Okay. So let's add some stuff here. Let's link our HTML to this home page that we just created. Link rel equals CSS style.css. It's not going to work yet because we're now inside of our home folder over here. So if we want to link to style.css, we have to go outside of home into CSS and then reference style. So // and now it'll work. So we don't, everything that we would see here, we need to add the content first, but we can at least see that the font changed because we linked this. Okay. All right, so let's set up, I think, just sort of a pretty basic menu structure so that we can go over how to link our pages together. Okay. Yeah, I just want to see this one more time. It's a cool website, which again, this does not look good. Let me fix that. Just want to make this There we go. That's much better. I love it now. Okay. So from here, this is your actual homepage. Inside of Docs, let's make a few folders. I'm going to call this one About, and I'll call this one, I don't know, Portfolio. Okay. And inside of each of these, for each page I make, I'm going to create an index.html file. And again, all of these should be sort of in line with each other inside of the docs folder. So whenever you make these folders, just make sure you've clicked on docs before you hit the new folder button. And then in here, I'm going to say one more folder, or no, about and portfolio is fine. Okay. So now I'm going to say HT. So right now I'm on this portfolio page, and I'm just going to create the very basic pages. Portfolio, H1, portfolio. Okay, and now I'm going to open up in my about page, or I'm going to create that file. So about, new file, index.html. Okay, and then in here, same thing, but I'll call this about, H1, about. All right, so we can't, we're not really seeing any of this happen over here yet, but we can take a look at these in a sec. So from our home page, which, all of these, I've named all of these index.html. Oops. Because when we do it this way, I don't have to say home.html up here. I can just say home and it will find the right HTML file because I called it index. So once we're here, I'm going to make a little menu structure now. So let's say I'm going to close off these tabs until I need them, because all I want to do is not work on the splash page. I just want to work on my home page. So from in here, I'm going to create a nav section for this menu. So just a little nav tag. And a nav is like a div in that they don't really do anything visually, but a nav just signals to your browser that this is going to be a navigation menu. So from in here, I'm going to create a couple A tags so that I can start to, from this page, link to my about page or my portfolio page. So I'm going to say A tab, and that gives me the fill-in stuff here for my href. So first, I'm going to make a link. I'm going to make a link for the home page. And since we're currently on the home page, I'm just going to put a single dot right there. So home, it's going to go in there. So if I click this, it's just going to keep me in the exact same place. Like the URL doesn't change when I click this. Okay, now below this, let's make a link for my about folder. Okay. Let's put about. So if I click this, it doesn't quite work yet. And that's because over here, home and about are sort of at the same level. So I would have to say ... / about so that I could get out of my home section and look inside of my about section. And now if I click here, it'll take me there. But I think what I'd actually like to do is, since this splash page here, this index.html that's inside of docs, I kind of want that to be its own standalone thing. So actually, sorry, scratch what I was about to say. We're going to keep everything as it is. So anyway, as long as you remember to do this for about, and then as well for portfolio. So / portfolio, because again, portfolio, about, home, these are all at the same level. So, okay. All right, so I've created these. So each of these now I can click on and it'll take me there. Let's add this menu structure to each page. So I have my home page. Now I want to add this to my portfolio so that I can, get around from each page. Oh, also, instead of saying home here at the top as an H1, I'm going to make this an H2. Maybe make an H1 above that and call this, and we'll say like cool website. Okay. So this is now where we could say like class equals site title. And this is class page title. So let's see, if I go into my CSS, okay. So I'm gonna scrunch this over a little bit. Okay. So from here, I can style these a little bit. So let's say for site title, I'm going to say text align center. Cool. And then for page title, I'll say text align center. And then I'm going to give this a thing as well. I'm going to say nav class equals main menu. Put that here and say dot main menu. And I will, for this, I can't say text align. Actually, I think I can. If I say text align center, I think it'll center each one. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So now we've got a nice centered little section up here. And like everything that we've just made here, this is all kind of stuff that one might want on each of their pages or something. So this is all one big header section. So I'm going to come over here and say header. And I'm not even going to give this one a class. I'm just going to say header. And I'm going to put everything inside of that header. So everything that's inside is tabbed over to the right. The opening tag is at the top. The closing tag is down here. And that didn't change the way it looked, but now I could come in here and say header, background, color, blue or something, and this applies to the entire section that we just made. Oof, that's hot. I could say padding 20 pixels, and that kind of like gives it some breathing room. So there's that. Okay. In the other video, I do a lot more of like setting up this menu to make it a little bit more responsive. If people want to go over that, I can at the end of this, but for now, I'm kind of just going to keep it here for a bit because I want to finish up like making all of these pages kind of look, well, they should look. So I think I'm going to spend a little bit more time on home. We have this header section here, and then I'm going to create a main section. And this main is like, again, it's like a div in that it doesn't really change how the thing looks necessarily. Like I could call this div if I wanted, but main is just a little bit more meaningful. This is like our main content. Maybe we have like a P tag here, and we can say, here's some cool information about the internet. Also in VS Code, if you start typing just lorem and you hit tab, it'll give you some placeholder text, which is kind of nice. So I'll make a p tag and I'll say lorem. Oh, what? Okay, for the video recording, hold on a sec. I'm going to pause the recording again. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay. All right, and we're back. Okay, so I've got this main content here, which just kind of looks like this over here. It's as big as the page. Maybe we don't want it to be as big as the entire page. So I'm going to give this a little class. I'm going to say main class equals main content. And in here, I'm going to say main content. And I'll give this a width of, I don't know, how about 1200 pixels. So now if I make my website really big, it won't keep spreading to the other side. Let's give it a background color so we can kind of see that in action. So yeah, so this is the background of the entire main content section. If I wanted that to be at the center of the page, I could say margin 0 auto. And now, no matter what I do, it's always going to be at the center of the page. So, okay. Let's give this some padding. Padding, 20 pixels. Maybe let's make all of the fonts in it just like really big. Font size 30 pixels. Okay. And I think I'll just copy this a couple of times. Oops. Just so I have like a full page of content. Cool. So you see it like doesn't, like the text starts to get cut off as I go over because I set the width to always be 1200 no matter what. So a nice thing I could do is say width, maybe let's make the width 70% of the window size. So 70 VW. So no matter what, it'll kind of grow to always be 70% of the width. But maybe this is like too wide. We don't ever want it to be this wide. So we can put on a max width and say max. Oh, sorry. I sometimes forget over the stream, it doesn't show while I'm adjusting. But if I do Control Shift M, oops. What just happened? Control Shift M, what? Sorry, did I just, what did I just do? Okay, hold on. Oh, I think I just didn't finish typing in what I needed to here. Max width 1200 pixels. Okay. Sorry, I think I screwed up my Chrome browser or my Firefox. There we go. Control Alt M. There we go. That's what I was trying to do. So I can show this better over Zoom. Like when I resize my page, it kind of grows with it because I set the width to be 70%. But if it gets too big, it'll stop growing at a certain point. So it's going to top out at 1200 pixels. Like it stopped growing even as I keep stretching out the window over there. So it's just a way to make your website a little bit more responsive. Okay. So the last thing I want to do now that I have this page here is link my other pages so that all of these are kind of looking similar. So I already have those pages. So let's add some content to them. I don't need my CSS for now. So let's just focus on HTML. So from in here, I'm going to start by kind of copying and pasting some stuff. I'm just going to take this entire header section that I made, and I'm going to put it in the index.html of my portfolio. So Right now, if I go to portfolio, it just looks like that. But if I paste in this header, now I start to get this stuff, but it doesn't look how it's supposed to look yet because we still have to link the CSS to this file. So in my head section, I'm going to say link rel equals style sheet href. So I'm going to say // css style.css. Now I get this here. And it says home because I copied and pasted everything. So I'm going to come in here and call the page title portfolio. Okay. So now it says portfolio. When I click the home button, I'm going to say .. /home. So that if I click here, it'll take me into my home page. And this is all set up correctly too. So if I click about, takes me to about, takes me to, yeah, wherever I need to go. So, well, except we're already in our portfolio page. So I kind of just want to, well, actually it does still work, I think, if I click here. So actually, yeah, let's just leave the menu like this. This is fine. So now to get this on our about page, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to take this whole section here. Control C to copy. And then I'm going to go into my about index.html. Go inside the body section, paste that in. Call this about. And again, we need to link our CSS so that it looks the way we want it to look. Link. And then we'll say .. /css style.css. Okay. Cool. So now that all of these are using the same, sorry, something in the chat. Okay, bye, Hannah. Thanks for coming. Okay. So yeah, we're almost done. I'm going to go back to the images kind of stuff that I was doing at the very beginning real quick, just to show kind of the difference between, you know, what happens like here, where we have this image that's like we made an image object in the HTML. But if I went into my CSS and I went into my body section and gave a background image to the whole body, now every single page has the same background image. So because every single page has a body section, if this stuff is in the body, then that's what will happen. I'll make this like 2000 pixels. Okay. So yeah, it's like really hard to read this now, but this is how you could potentially apply a background image to every single page by putting this stuff in your body section. Okay, but I'm going to take that off. Okay. So yes, I think everything is working now. Every single page allows me to get to every other page. Cool. Last thing I want to do is just make this site title. Well, we actually have a home link right here, so I think it's fine as it is. But yeah, we sort of have kind of the basics of a web page here. Let's go back to GitHub desktop. We see all of these changes, and I'll say add lots of stuff. I don't know, commit to master, push origin, and then sometime within the next 30 seconds to a minute, the actual web page will be updated. So, and again, if you ever forget like how to find that, because right now we're working in live server, and if you turned this link in for the final, I wouldn't be able to see your web page. This only works on your own personal computer. So if you want the link that you want for when you turn this in, and if you want to ever show this to anybody, is the one that you get from, say, going to your website, going to the repository for this. And then once you're here, going back into settings, and then scrolling down till you get to GitHub Pages, and then you see this link here. And this is the one that, hooray, like you could go to this website on your own computer and it would work. And this is the one that I want you to turn into Canvas at the end. So this is, yeah, what you're gonna eventually turn in. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the gist of what I wanted to cover for this workshop. I know that was kind of a lot, but my hope is that, you know, even though this looks like a lot of files and folders, all of the same principles sort of keep repeating themselves over and over again. Like, you know, I have all of this stuff that makes up a header, so I just put it in a header thing. Like, if I have things, I group them together based on their, you know, what they're doing. Like, I don't have to have main class, main content to display all of this stuff. I could just have a bunch of p tags, but by putting them inside of this main content thing, it gives me more control over a certain section of my page. So anytime you want to make a section for something, I mean, you can just say div whatever. I don't know, maybe let's just real quick, last thing, just make a super quick like image gallery or something. So I'm back in live server. I'm going to go to portfolio. Let's just inside of my portfolio make a really quick image gallery. So I'm going to go into my portfolio page and I'm going to say main, but I'm going to do the same thing I had before. Main class equals main content, because that's what I have. See, it gives me the pink background. It gives me the 70% width thing, because that's what I specified in my CSS in the main content class. So all this stuff I'm now going to continue to apply here. Let's go back into portfolio. So in here, you know, I could say add P, or maybe like, I don't know, just a random H3, like this is my art. I don't know. And like maybe here, let me put my style back over here. Okay, and we're back. Like maybe we want to center that. So let's call this like H3 class equals section title. I don't know. So now we can go in here and say dot section title and say text align center. Okay. So inside of my main content, I have an H3, and now let's add a little gallery. So I'm going to say dot, or I'm going to say div class equals gallery. And again, any of the stuff that I'm putting in quotes, I'm calling this really whatever I want for the most part. Whenever I make a class, the important thing is, you know, as long as the text over here matches what you have over here, then you're good to go. So div class gallery. Let's throw in some images real quick. So image source. So we already have that forest image, and I want to link to that. So I want to say dot slash images forest. Okay. So, okay, it puts it in by default at its full size. So for this here, I'm going to say image class equals gallery item, or like gallery image, I guess. And now I could say dot gallery image width 300 pixels. Okay, great. So now any image that I give class gallery image to, it's going to have a width of 300 pixels. I'm going to copy and paste this a couple of times. Okay, great. So I've got this image gallery that as I resize the page, it kind of like goes, goes with it. But if I wanted to center these images, I could just throw on a real quick flex. So, but before I do that, we can see that this is just a div that I decided to give a class of gallery, and I put a bunch of stuff in there. So that gallery, I could like say dot gallery, maybe a border. Let's give it a border. Border, 2 pixels, solid, purple. And it probably won't look that good, but like we can see, like this is the entire space of that gallery. Now, if I want to like center all this stuff nicely, I'm going to go into my dot gallery class here and say display flex. And that doesn't change them much yet. It does put them all on one row, which like they'll grow as the page grows, but we don't want it to be like that. Like, it's big over here, small over here. Flex will do that until I go into my gallery image. And well, first, actually, I have to turn off wrapping, or I have to turn it on, excuse me. So I'm going to say flex wrap, and that like makes the images go down to the next line. And now they're butting right up against each other. And it kind of looks the same as before. Like I do this and they kind of bounce around until they have enough room. But I could say justify content center. And now they center each other. I could also give them like now, so I'm doing all this to the gallery because I'm saying everything inside of the gallery, I want it to do all of these things. But then there's some things where I want to go to each individual image and say margin, I don't know, let's say 30 pixels. That's a lot. Let's just say 10. And now they kind of give each other some breathing room. So yeah, a lot of different ways to organize our content. And of course, I have all this stuff in this gallery. I could like then below the gallery add some text if I wanted. Like, each as you build your pages, it's just a matter of creating sections. Let's see. Okay, so let's yeah, I think we can stop there. I think that's enough. Let me do one final push to GitHub with these changes I made. Create gallery on folio page, commit to master, push origin. Okay. Awesome. All right. I think I'll stop the recording, or I'll pause the recording here.